Welcome back to my channel, and this is the fourth in a series of videos about intuition in the human design system. One of the things I love about human design, you've probably heard me say this if you've been following me at all, is how many different forms of intuition the human design system reveals to us. And I believe that intuition is the way that we're going to receive the guidance and the breakthrough ideas and the new possibilities and potentials that we need to evolve ourselves at this moment here on planet Earth, because we are in a very strong evolutionary process right now. And I think that intuition is really going to be the key for us. So today is video number 4, and we're going to talk about the sacral. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to let you know that on the same day that this video is being released, that I am doing a sacral skills demonstration inside of the new virtual retreat center that I've created called Becoming Sovereign. And I invite you to come and check it out. If you get this in time, you can come and watch it live. If not, you can always watch the replay. And the link to register for the virtual retreat center will be down in the description, and it's totally free for you to come. So come and check it out, because I think that that will be something that will really help you to fill out what I'm talking about today in terms of the sacral and its intuitive abilities. You also can watch, I have another video that you can go and see right here, Sacral Authority Demonstrated. I think that's what it is, but I'll put the link up here. And that's one where I work with 4 different women to help them get in touch with their sacral authority. So there are a variety of different videos that I've already done on the sacral and sacral authority. Some of this might be review for you, but some of it is definitely going to be new material for everyone. Okay, the sacral center is the red square down at the bottom of the chart if you have it defined in your chart. And if it's red on your chart, that means you're either a pure generator or a manifesting generator, because everyone who has a red square is going to be some form of a generator. So the sacral is one of 4 motors in the human design chart. It's the most powerful engine in the chart. It has long-term sustainable energy. It's the center for life force energy, and it can give you the energy you need to work and to participate, or to hike or to engage in anything for long periods of time, provided that you're taking good care of yourself and that you're living in alignment with your design, so that you're not initiating too much if you're a sacral being, and you're following your strategy and your authority. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's the only engine that has this long-term sustainable energy. All the others pulse, like the root center pulses, the emotional solar plexus has a wave, and the will center has kind of shorter bursts of energy, and then it needs to back off. It's like needs to work to rest. So we can use willpower for short periods of time, but it's not long-term and sustainable. So it's this sacral energy that makes generators able to work for so long and to engage for so long. And this can be great when you're living on purpose and you're in alignment with your design and you feel really engaged and inspired and excited about what you're doing. It's wonderful for that. But it's not so great sometimes when you're working in a job that you don't really like, but you can keep on going because you've got this sacral energy. So it can be a little bit of a mixed bag for us generators. So in addition to being the center for life force energy, the sacral is, for the generator types, is your interface with your inner being. And the guidance that you receive through your inner being from spirit, from super consciousness, from the creative intelligence of the universe. What I often call the flow of life. Some people call, divine source energy or God, goddess, all that is. There's many different words that we have to describe this incredible power that has created everything, really. And the sacral for us generator types is really how that creative force speaks to us through our own inner being. Now, the sacral is an interesting entity, I might call it, is because it's nonverbal and it's nonlinear, and it is not thinking in the usual sense because it's not using words. Okay, it's not going to tell you, you really shouldn't do that because this is, blah da 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 da. This is going to happen. Like, it's not going to do that. If you start to ask a question and you get a response like that, it's not the sacral. As the sacral makes non-verbal, non-word sounds. So it goes mm-hmm or mm-mm, or sometimes just mm-mm. For me, it's very embodied. Okay, so I get a lot of head nodding, mm-hmm, or mm-mm. Sometimes it's a full body, yeah, or mm-mm, right? So everyone has to find the way that their sacral really communicates with them. I did a reading for somebody recently, and she said her whole body started going when it was a yes for her. Which I thought was great. So you want to find out what that is really for you. So the sacral is intuitive, right? It is an intuitive knowing, because intuition just is any form of knowing that's not rational, logical, reasonable, or analytical. Okay, so intuition is defined by what it's not. And this is why it's so great when we have something like human design and so many different people now who are creating schools and investigating intuition, so that we're starting to map many different kinds of intuition that we have. And so the sacral is not like a new thing, okay, because we know it from folklore as trust your gut. Right? What does your gut say? What does your belly tell you? Right? This is how we've kind of understood the sacral, your gut feelings, your gut response, right? And sometimes we can feel it very viscerally, like, oh, like, right? Like that, right? Or sometimes it can be kind of an up, like, kind of feeling. The thing is if you start to notice that you're responding with words, you've gone up into your thinking mind. And so you want to watch out for that. So the sacral is not logical, linear, strategic, or numerical, or data-based at all. Okay, it's not that. It's responsive. It's sensitive to energy. It bounces off of things outside of itself. So for generators, our strategy is to respond. And it works in tandem with the Sacral Authority, because otherwise, how do we know how to respond, right? You might have something that comes up, maybe you're in a conversation with somebody and somebody asks you, hey, do you want to, participate in this event that I'm creating? And you want to respond, and you're like, well, how do I respond if I'm not going to use my mind, right? Like, how do I do that? Well, you do it with your Sacral Authority, and that is an intuitive response. So you want to be able to tune in and be like, somebody brought this up, and you're like, yeah, that feels good. Yeah, that feels good to me. Or I'm not getting a yes on that. And this kind of language is becoming much more common in conversation, certainly in the spheres that I'm in. But the thing is I want to make a distinction, because sometimes I'll notice people will say things like, yeah, I'm not getting a yes on that, but I don't know actually what they're tapping into when they say that, because I'm not always sure that they're tapping in to an intuitive form of guidance and not just something that their mind is telling them. So this is one of the reasons I love the sacral, because once you get to understand what it feels like and how it communicates to you, then you know that that's what's responding. You know that that's what that is. And it really takes the guesswork out, which is great. Now, I do want to say that because it is non-mental, right? And it can be challenging for some people to access it, and trusting it can be difficult because we are so conditioned to do things with our thinking minds, right? We're so conditioned into that left brain dominance, which is a powerful and important way of knowing, right? But we are the cognitive and the mental is very privileged in Western culture. And I've heard from many people that I've worked with, both as clients in my programs or one-on-one with me, and with people I've done readings for. And they, number one, they say, I'm not sure if what I'm getting is my sacral or not, right? So it's like, is this my sacral, or is this my mind making this up, or is this some other part of intuition? Because that can also happen. Because if you have a lot of other intuitive parts of your chart, you can have intuition coming in too, which isn't necessarily the sacral. Now, for me, on the printout of my chart, it says I have splenic authority because I defined spleen and I have the 57 defined. But I choose to use the sacral because the intuitive knowing, I don't have as specific and trustworthy way of accessing it as I do with the sacral. Because the sacral will be like, and intuition can just be like, oh, I'm trying to intuit it. I'm like reading the tea leaves. I'm, pulling tarot cards. And I'm trying to see, how can I get the intuitive signs in different ways? Whereas with the sacral, it's very, very specific. But even some people who have been able to access their sacral and they kind of are like, oh, I think that's what it is, they don't necessarily trust it because their mind is very often saying something different, right? And they don't have any reason behind it. There's no explanation. The sacral isn't going to tell you why it's going or it's just going to do that. And we're so conditioned to go, well, why? Where did that come from? What's that based on? I hear this from people all the time. They'll say it about human design too. They're like, where does it come from? What's it based on? Why should I believe it? And I'm like, you know what? It just works. It just works. And so I say, try it. I say the same thing with the sacral. But very often people have a hard time not believing their minds, right? Not believing the things that their minds are saying. And so you can get a whole barrage of thoughts, arguments, ways of dismissing things that your mind doesn't understand. Even if your sacral is going, yeah, and your mind is going, are you frigging crazy? So it takes practice. Ideally, working with somebody who knows how to ask questions of your sacral that will get you the kind of information that you're looking for. And if you've ever used a pendulum for being able to get answers, it can be helpful in this regard because using a pendulum, you get yes-no questions also. I mean, some people have some really sophisticated ways of using pendulums, but for most of us, we use it just to get a yes-no response. And so if you've done something like that, or if you've done muscle testing, then you might have a understanding of how to, what I say is dive in and differentiate, right? You dive in, you get a response, and then you're like, okay, I need to kind of split this up into different pieces so that I can ask the question different ways so I can get different kinds of answers. And I would say that that's pretty common when you're working with a pendulum or you're doing muscle testing as well. Sometimes people say that they can feel it for simple things, right? Things that don't have a lot of risk involved. But then when it comes to something that's either more complex or where there's more risk involved, or it feels like a bigger decision, right? Then they can kind of get tightened up and have a hard time feeling it because their mind also tends to get more activated. And sometimes your conditioning can get activated so that a program gets going, right? And the next thing you know, you're in an unconscious program that has taken over your thinking. And you're not actually in touch. You're not really in your body anymore. You're not able to touch into that deeper wisdom because the subconscious has kind of taken over. So recommendation I have when you want to connect with your sacral, if you're not so used to doing that, is to do something physical, like exercise, run, ride a bike, go to the gym, dance, take a vigorous walk, do something really physical because that helps you get in your body and get out of your mind, right? You can also go out into a walk in nature or something like that, even lie on the ground, but something that can help your mind to soften and slow down. And also when you do something really physical and you exercise, you start getting endorphins going. And so it automatically starts to kind of open up your perception. Then you can do some breath work. You can either just do long, deep breaths, or you can do breath of fire, which I have shown demonstrations of, and I will be teaching quite a bit of breath of fire inside of the virtual retreat center that I've opened, because it's a big part of deconditioning that I like to teach people. But just some form of breath work, because that again will help you to get out of your thinking mind and help open up your energy field. Okay, so it'll calm down those thoughts and you can begin to hear and to feel this kind of deeper flow that's going on. And because a lot of times you need to shift out of your regular state. You know, our regular state is very mentally focused, you know, the devices, the computers, and all of that. And so we need to shift our state so that we can start tapping into this other intelligence that we have, which is always right there. It's always right there, and it always wants to share with you, but it can't get through to you if you're not paying attention. But when you are able to shift your state, you'll usually have a sense of calm and ease and relaxation when you can get in touch with it. It won't ever speak to you with fear, unless there's actually some real and present danger, you know, like get out of the street, right? But usually it won't ever speak to you in fear. Even if it's sending you away from something like, don't go in that direction, don't talk to that person, don't take that opportunity or whatever. It's not going to do it with fear. It's just going to be like, Sometimes you can get a very strong feeling. I was thinking about this earlier, that I was having a conversation with a client, and she was sharing with me about, she had been following this thought leader who was presenting some material to her about how to work with the inner child. And my sacral was a full on no. I was like, no, that is not how you work with the inner child, right? But it didn't have all those words. It was just like this, I had this full body no, right? And it was hard for me to actually not have it just jump out of my mouth, because it was such a strong feeling. So you can have that. You can also have it in the affirmative, like a full body yes, like a right, as well. And when you get good at it, you'll find that the sacral can also kind of direct you. It's interesting because it's nonverbal, okay? But it'll kind of direct you from the inside, particularly if it wants to send you in a direction of something that you've been thinking about or something you've been considering, and maybe it told you before it wasn't the right time, or you just kind of knew it wasn't the right time, but now it's the right time, and it'll kind of send you in this direction. I had this happen with this online community that I just opened up, because I kind of got my timeline off for 2022, you know, when my family died in June. And then I had a few months where I didn't really create anything new. I mean, I did my videos and stuff and worked with my clients, but I wasn't, you know, I didn't work on my book, and I wasn't doing this. And, you know, and I thought, okay, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get back to my book. And I was back with my book for a few weeks. And then all of a sudden it was like my sacral picked me up and pointed me at Mighty Network and said, you know, it was like, I was like, oh gosh, I have to build my community now. It was like, I was like, now, I was like, really? I was like, oh, okay. My mind's like, but what about this? I know, you know. And then once I just went, okay, I'm going to go in that direction. You know what? My mind just shut up about the book. I mean, it just wasn't an issue anymore. And I had so much energy to create this thing. And I'd known that I wanted to do it. I wasn't really sure of the timing. But there it was. And so I just want you to know that there's a lot of benefit that can come to you when you really learn how to feel it. And it's not like you just get it once and it's over. It's like it can deepen and deepen and deepen as you pay more and more attention and you allow it to guide you more and more. And I do want to let you know that you already have your sacral active inside of you, even if you're not so aware of it. Very often when I'm working with a client or I'm doing a reading for someone, they'll start going, when I'm talking to them. And I'll be like, there's your sacral. And they're like, what? I'll be like, well, yeah, you were just going, mm-hmm. They're like, really? I'm like, mm-hmm. I said, you got to go back and listen to the recording because you were just going, mm-hmm. And I said, now start to pay attention for yourself about when you start to do that, because that's your sacral. And then sometimes they'll be talking and I'll be like, mm-hmm. And I'll be like, see, there's mine. You make these sounds all the time, or you have this all the time, unless you've really completely squelched it. Just know that, and that it doesn't have to be that hard necessarily. Now, there's a few really big benefits from opening up this form of your intuition. The biggest thing that I've gotten from my sacral is its ability to tell me if I have energy for something or not. Because it's the center for life force energy, and it will basically go like, we've got long-term, sustainable, reliable energy for this project, for this endeavor, for this relationship, for this whatever it is, right? Or, And you might even feel inspired in the moment and be like, oh yeah, but I have energy for it right now, and it's still going, And it's basically saying, no, you do not have long-term, reliable, sustainable energy for this. You don't have it. And so it'll protect you from that. I used to make decisions before I really took on human design. I used to make decisions with my mind. I would create a strategy and move forward with a timeline that I thought was a good idea, right? It was a good timeline. It was a good idea. Strategy makes sense. And I'd be inspired about it initially. And then partway through it, I would lose motivation, and I'd be like, oh no, I'm like partway through this. I need to finish it. I need to complete it. But then I would have to use my willpower, and I would have to use that willpower to get myself through it. And that will lead to burnout, particularly if you do it habitually. And I did it habitually because I didn't know there was another way to do anything. So, you do not habitually want to do that. And this is one of the things I hear from people a lot is that they initiate, right? They get going, they initiate, and then they lose their energy. And so that will totally fry you. And so you want to avoid doing that at all costs, okay? Because here's the thing. It doesn't matter how good the idea is if you don't have the energy to manifest it over the long term. If it's the wrong time, if you're not actually ready, or the other people that you're engaging with or for whom you're creating this thing, if they're not ready. I mean, there's so many different factors that play into whether or not you're going to have energy for this. And what I've found is that when you do get that and you get the yes, what happens is that you also are tapping into this deeper flow, right? That the creative power of the universe is sending through the solar system and through each one of us every day. And that then you use so much less of your own energy because you're actually riding a wave. And that's another thing that the sacral will tell you is, that has to do with timing, right? Is with right timing, because you could do something, in 1 month, and you could do it a year later, and you could have completely different results doing exactly the same thing because it's at a different time. And if you're more in alignment with that deeper flow of energy that you can ride, okay? Because the sacral is your interface, right, with your inner being, and is connected to the super consciousness, right? So there's the you of you that of everyday life, right? There's that your soul inspired personality, but then there's the inner being, which is infused from your soul, and then your soul is infused by that creative intelligence of the universe, right? There's these kind of different layers of consciousness that we are a part of, and so when you connect with that sacral, basically that creative intelligence through these different layers of consciousness is guiding you. And just think about how big that perspective is compared to the ones that our mind has, right? I mean, as brilliant as our minds are, they are limited. The thinking mind I'm talking about here, not the imaginative mind. I'm talking about the thinking mind, which is more like a computer. And it has its role, and we love it, and we need it, but it is limited in its perspective. Whereas when you think about, super consciousness, I'd say it has kind of a big perspective, right? Yeah. So one of the tricks you're going to need, and that has been such a huge lesson and a huge benefit for me, is you have to surrender your mind's desire to stay in charge. The part of you that wants to be in control. The part of you that wants to be right. That wants to know what's going to happen. Right? You have to surrender that part, because you're not going to know. And you're not going to know what is going to happen. I mean, how do any of us really know what's going to happen? Like, I talk to people sometimes, I don't want to get involved in anything until I know what's going to happen. I'm like, how does that work out for you? Does it work out the way you think it's going to? I mean, so much of the time it doesn't. And it can be way better than you think it's going to be when you allow it to unfold in a way that it's guided by spirit, right? So that part, though, does not want to let go, and it doesn't want to trust spirit. It doesn't want, some other part of you to be guiding. It likes to be in charge, right? And it's been used to being on center stage. So you have to surrender that ego projection, right? That's been the director of the play of your life, right? That pretends it knows everything, so that you can tap into the deeper flow. And I'll tell you, when you do that, a kind of, unexpected benefit is it's such a huge relief. It is such a relief when you start to get this. I used to be so burdened by feeling that I had to be in charge, that I had to figure everything out, that I had to make everything happen. It was really heavy, and it wore me down. It was another thing that really burned me out. I just feel like I was kind of like this a lot of the time. It's like, okay, And I feel so much lighter now, so much more grace, so much more ease, so much more expansion, right? And so the sacral is a huge intuitive superpower that's actually been with us forever. Like I said, it's been a part of folklore for a long time. It's not just a human design thing. It's just that human design has kind of helped us understand it differently than maybe we understood before. And when you really get it, it's very reliable. It can be mysterious because you don't necessarily know why it's telling you to do what you do. You don't know what you're avoiding when you don't do something it told you to do, right? And you don't always know why you go in a certain direction, until later. And even then, sometimes you're not really certain. Okay, so it's mysterious in that way. But that's why we have to surrender the part of us that wants to be in charge and wants to know. And it's actually a bit more reliable than the heart. Like a lot of times we say, trust your heart. The thing is the heart is a place where we feel wounded a lot. And it's not that we don't want to trust our heart. And it is authority for people who have self-projected authority. But that's a whole nother video that we'll get into at another time. But the gut, I think, is actually even more reliable than the heart in certain respects, because it's not emotional in that way. It's not. It's responsive, but it's not emotional. I hope that you will come and join us in Becoming Sovereign, our virtual retreat center. And the link is here, and the link is down below. And really, if you join now, you'll be a founding member, and you'll have an opportunity to become a founding member before aspects of it start to be a paid membership. And in that, you get to co-create with me and with other members what it is that we're doing in there. I have many, many ideas. I have no shortage of ideas. But this is something that I want to co-create, and I have a vision for how we can really learn to live our human design. We can have other people to talk to about our human design. We can we can help to create a world in which people know their human design and know how to support each other with their human design, and also how that fits into the 8 pillars of feminine sovereignty, which is my body of work, which will also be something that is showcased and you'll get to play with and practice inside of our retreat center. So I hope that you will go ahead and join us there. All right. Many blessings. Much love.